You did everything you were told to do. You studied hard, you followed the rules, you chased success step by step. And from the outside, it looks like you made it. But deep inside, something feels missing. Not broken, not visible, just empty. You wake up, and there's no real excitement. You achieve something, and the feeling disappears faster than it came. And at night, when everything goes quiet, that emptiness speaks louder than ever. And the hardest part is this: you can't even explain it to anyone, because in their eyes, your life looks successful. But here's the truth I want you to understand today. What you're feeling isn't failure, it's disconnection. A disconnection between what you've built and what actually gives your life meaning. And until you understand that gap, no amount of success will ever feel enough. You did everything right. You followed the system, you chased the goals, you checked every box that was supposed to define a successful life. From the outside, it looks complete, even impressive. People might admire what you've built, the position you've reached, the things you own, the progress you've made. But inside, there's a quiet truth that doesn't match the outside picture. Success without purpose slowly starts to feel like you're moving forward without knowing why you're moving at all. You wake up and you perform, you go through the motions, you handle responsibilities, you meet expectations. But somewhere along the way, the emotional connection to what you are doing starts fading. It doesn't happen suddenly. It happens quietly in moments you don't notice at first. You achieve something you once dreamed of, and instead of lasting satisfaction, there is only a short pause before your mind shifts to the next target, the next milestone, the next pressure. And even when you reach that too, the feeling remains the same. It's not excitement, it's not joy, it's not fulfillment. It's just continuation. The problem is not that success is bad. The problem is when success becomes disconnected from meaning. When you start building a life based only on outcomes, without understanding the deeper reason behind those outcomes, everything begins to feel temporary. You might think the next achievement will finally change how you feel, but that feeling never arrives in the way you expect. Instead, there is a constant sense of emotional distance between what you have and what you feel. You are surrounded by results, but still feel unfulfilled inside, as if something important is missing, but you cannot clearly define it. That is where emptiness begins to grow, not because you failed, but because you succeeded in the wrong direction for too long without questioning why it matters to you personally. You worked for it. You sacrificed for it. You stayed consistent when others gave up. You built something that you once dreamed about, step by step, day by day, believing that once you reach a certain level, everything inside you would finally feel right. But now you are here, standing in the place you once wanted so badly, and instead of feeling complete, you feel something unexpected, a quiet disconnect. The goals are achieved, but the satisfaction didn't stay. The success is visible, but the meaning feels distant. This is where many people get confused because they assume achievement and fulfillment are the same thing, but they are not. Achievement is external. It is measured in results, numbers, recognition, status. Fulfillment is internal. It is measured in alignment, purpose, and emotional connection to what you are doing. When you focus only on achievement, you can climb very high, but still feel like something essential is missing from the experience itself. You start moving faster, thinking maybe more success will fix the feeling, but the feeling doesn't disappear with more results. It often becomes even more noticeable. The real issue is not that you haven't achieved enough, it's that what you achieved is not fully connected to what you truly value. Somewhere along the way, the direction became more important than the meaning behind the direction. You kept going because you were supposed to, because it looked right, because it made sense on paper, but not because it deeply aligned with who you are. And when action is disconnected from meaning, even success starts to feel empty after the moment of celebration fades. This creates a silent gap inside a person where everything looks fine externally, but internally there is no emotional reward that lasts. You become productive, you become disciplined, you become responsible, but you stop feeling the emotional weight of why it all matters. And without realizing it, you begin to live in a cycle of constant achievement with no lasting fulfillment, always reaching, always building, always moving, but never arriving at a place where your inner world feels as satisfied as your outer world appears to be. You start thinking that the problem is motivation, or maybe discipline, or maybe even luck. You look at people who are more successful, more consistent, more focused, and you assume they simply have something you don't. But over time, you begin to realize something uncomfortable. Even when you have the talent, even when you have the opportunity, even when you have the resources, success is still not guaranteed. There are people with less skill who go further, and people with more skill who never move at all. And that creates a deeper question inside you about what actually drives success in the first place. This is where many people misunderstand the journey. They believe talent is the deciding factor, but talent without direction becomes wasted potential. It creates the illusion of capability without the structure of consistency. You can be extremely capable in moments, but inconsistent in execution, and that inconsistency slowly builds a gap between what you can do and what you actually do. Over time, that gap becomes the reason progress stops. The real difference is not in what people have, but in what people do repeatedly when no one is watching and when results are not immediate. The people who succeed are not always the most talented, but they are often the ones who continue when the excitement fades, when the results are not visible yet, when the process feels slow and unimportant. Talent can open a door, but it cannot keep you walking through the long hallway that follows. That part requires something deeper than ability. Most people fail not because they lack skill, but because they underestimate what consistency actually demands. Consistency is not emotional, it is structural. It does not depend on how you feel in the moment. It depends on whether your actions are aligned with a deeper reason that keeps you moving even when motivation disappears. Without that deeper reason, talent becomes unstable and progress becomes temporary. And that is why so many people with potential never fully become what they are capable of becoming, not because they were not good enough, but because they never built the system of repetition that success quietly depends on over time. You spend years believing that money is the answer. You think once you reach a certain income level, everything will finally feel stable inside you. The stress will disappear, the pressure will reduce, and life will start to feel lighter, so you chase it. You work harder, you push longer, you sacrifice time, energy, and sometimes even your peace of mind, all in the hope that money will eventually bring clarity to your life. And for a moment, when progress starts showing, it feels like you are on the right path. The numbers increase, the lifestyle improves, and there is a sense of moving forward that feels rewarding at first. But then something subtle begins to happen. The excitement fades faster than expected. The satisfaction that you imagined would stay begins to disappear almost immediately after each achievement. You realize that money solves problems, but it doesn't solve the feeling of confusion about why you are doing what you are doing in the first place. It can give comfort, but it cannot give direction. It can reduce stress in one area, but it cannot replace the deeper need for meaning that quietly sits inside every human being. The truth is, when money becomes the only focus, life slowly turns into a constant pursuit of more, without ever asking whether more is actually making you feel fulfilled. You start measuring progress only in numbers, and in that process, you disconnect from the emotional reason behind your effort. You begin to believe that once you reach the next level, you will finally feel complete. But each level only introduces a new expectation, a new pressure, a new target that replaces the last one. And without realizing it, you enter a cycle where money is always ahead of you, but peace is never with you. You keep thinking that financial success will eventually bring emotional clarity, but clarity does not come from accumulation, it comes from alignment, when your work is not connected to something meaningful beyond money. Even success starts to feel like an endless task rather than a fulfilling journey. And that is where the disconnect grows, where life looks successful from the outside, but feels like something essential is still missing on the inside. You reach a point in life where everything from the outside looks right. You have progress, you have stability, you have goals that are being achieved one after another. People might even look at your life and assume you are doing extremely well. But inside, there is a feeling that is hard to explain. It is not pain, it is not sadness in the traditional sense. It is something quieter, a sense of emptiness that exists even when everything seems to be working. And the confusing part is that you don't understand why it is there. You start asking yourself questions that don't have simple answers. If I have achieved so much, why don't I feel fulfilled? If I am successful, why does it still feel like something is missing? And slowly you begin to realize that emotional satisfaction is not always connected to external success. You can build a life that looks complete, but still feel internally disconnected from it. Because fulfillment does not come from what others see. It comes from what you feel aligned with at a deeper level. This is where the concept of WHY becomes important. Most people focus on what they are doing and how they are doing it, but very few people stop to question why they are doing it in the first place. And when the why is missing or unclear, even strong achievement starts to feel hollow after the moment passes. You can repeat success multiple times, but if the reason behind it is not emotionally meaningful, the feeling of satisfaction never stays. The why is not just a motivational idea, it is the foundation of emotional connection to your life. When your actions are connected to a deeper reason, even small progress feels meaningful. But when that connection is missing, even big success feels temporary. You start living in a pattern where you are always achieving but rarely feeling fulfilled by what you achieve. And over time, that creates a quiet internal gap between your outer life and your inner experience, where everything appears successful, but nothing feels deeply satisfying for long enough to create real emotional peace. You start to realize that most of the time, it was never about lack of ability. You were capable. You had ideas, you had opportunities, and you even had moments where you felt highly motivated and confident. But still, there were times when you couldn't move forward. Times when you delayed things, times when you stopped even when you knew exactly what needed to be done. And that creates a confusing belief that something is wrong with your motivation, as if you are waiting for the right feeling to finally take action. But the truth is deeper than that. Motivation was never meant to be the foundation of progress. Motivation comes and goes, it rises and falls depending on circumstances, emotions, and environment. If your entire life depends on waiting for motivation, then your progress will always be inconsistent. Some days you will feel powerful, other days completely disconnected. And in that cycle, your potential remains unfulfilled not because you don't have drive, but because drive alone cannot sustain long-term direction. What you are actually missing is clarity. Clarity is what tells you exactly why you are doing something even when you don't feel like doing it. A clarity is what removes confusion in moments where motivation disappears. When you are clear, action becomes less emotional and more structural. You don't wait for the perfect mood. You don't wait for inspiration. You simply move because the direction is already defined in your mind. Most people think they need more motivation videos, more inspiration, more energy to push them forward, but what they actually need is to sit down and understand what truly matters to them and why it matters. Because once clarity is present, even small steps start to feel meaningful. Without clarity, even strong motivation fades quickly because there is no anchor holding it in place. And that is why so many people stay stuck in cycles of starting and stopping, because they are trying to solve a clarity problem with a motivation solution. But when clarity finally enters, everything becomes simpler, not easier, but clearer. And in that clarity, action stops being something you force and starts becoming something that naturally follows understanding, even in moments when emotion is absent and energy feels low. You look at your life and you start to wonder why things feel harder than they should. You are trying, you are working, you are improving in many ways, but still there is a quiet frustration inside you that doesn't fully go away. You see other people moving ahead, building faster, achieving more. And even though you know you are not standing still, you still feel like something is missing in your progress. And that feeling slowly turns into a belief that maybe you are falling behind in life. But what most people don't realize is that this feeling is not always connected to reality. It is often connected to comparison. You are not measuring your life based on your own journey anymore. You are measuring it based on what you see from others. And in a world where everyone only shows their best moments, that comparison becomes unfair without you even noticing it. You are comparing your behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel, and that naturally creates pressure that feels personal, but is actually distorted. The truth is, life does not move at the same speed for everyone. Every person is building something different, with different timing, different struggles, and different foundations. But when you constantly look at others, you start ignoring your own progress. You forget how far you have already come because your attention is always on where someone else is right now. And that shift slowly creates the illusion that you are behind, even when you are moving forward in your own way. This constant comparison does not just affect your confidence, it affects your peace. Because no matter how much you achieve, It never feels enough when your reference point is always changing. You finish one goal, but instead of feeling satisfied, your mind immediately shifts to someone who is already ahead in another direction. And in that cycle, progress stops feeling personal and starts feeling competitive in a way that never ends. The real challenge is not that you are behind, it is that you are not fully present in your own journey. And when presence is missing, even progress starts to feel incomplete, as if you are always catching up to something that keeps moving further away the more you chase it without focusing on your own path and growth trajectory.